The letter sits between them like a wound reopened. The studio lights don't flicker, but the atmosphere does heavy. Suspended? Oprah doesn't reach for it. Her eyes lock on the paper as if it's radiating heat. Outside the studio, a live counter ticks upward, millions now watching. But inside, it's just two people, and the ghost of someone who never had the mic. Ibrahim doesn't press. He lays the letter gently on the desk between them. She wrote it with a crayon, he says quietly. There were no pens left. Only broken toys. The silence that follows isn't empty, it's filled with all the moments the world turned away. Oprah swallows hard. Her voice, when it comes, is barely a whisper. Where did you get this? But he doesn't answer that. He doesn't need to. Narration steps in, explaining nothing, only observing. The microphone hums with unspoken weight. The paper flutters slightly under the air. Vent, but neither of them moves. Outside, a trending hashtag begins to form. Hashtag the letter. But in the studio, time moves slower. Ibrahim folds his hands. His expression hasn't changed since he walked in, still calm, still unshaken. Oprah, though, is shifting. Her practiced poise now feels like a mask slipping. Her fingers twitch near the letter, but retreat again. I never saw it, she says after a beat. A flicker of vulnerability cracks through the polished tone. No one showed me. But the way she says it, there's uncertainty now, even in her own defense. Ibrahim finally speaks, not to accuse, but to illuminate. Some stories don't get told because they don't fit the frame, but the frame is the lie. Narration returns, describing the image. Oprah's fingers finally touch the edge of the paper, gently, like she's afraid it might burn. The sound? Tech mutes his own breath. One camera slowly zooms in, not for drama, but to witness. This isn't confrontation, it's reckoning. Oprah lifts the letter but doesn't unfold it. Her lips part slightly. Her eyes shift not toward Ibrahim, but inward. Searching, memory colliding with denial. She doesn't cry. Not yet. But the shine in her eyes is undeniable. What's in it? She asks, almost to herself. Ibrahim doesn't move. Her brother's name, her fear, her silence, and your name, written in purple. The studio lights feel colder now. Oprah sets the letter back down, open but unread. The tension holds tight, unrelenting. This isn't the Oprah people are used to. This is not the staged vulnerability or inspirational crescendo. This is raw, unscripted silence. And in that silence, something begins to unravel, not for the audience, but for her. Ibrahim doesn't dominate the space, but he owns the truth within it. Narration shifts again, reflecting on how power often disguises itself in empathy, how the world rewards selective compassion, and how sometimes justice arrives not as thunder but as a quiet, undeniable presence. She leans back, her hand brushes, her mouth unsure what gesture to make. Her eyes glance at the monitor, showing live chat reactions, but quickly turn away. This wasn't the conversation I expected, she finally says. Ibrahim replies, neither did she expect to die unheard. The line lands not with force, but with finality. The room breathes again, but differently, thinner now, vulnerable. Oprah reaches for her water but forgets to drink. The letter lies open, a child's handwriting scrawled across it like an echo. Outside, trending lists climb. News anchors prepare statements. But inside, the scene freezes for a second longer. Oprah looks to Ibrahim, but he's no longer watching her. His eyes are on the paper, on the voice that was once ignored. The camera light dims into red, end stream, but the weight remains. In a world saturated with noise, it's the silence between their final glances that speaks the loudest. The call hangs in the air like smoke. Oprah doesn't speak. Her hands are folded tightly now, thumbs pressed together as if holding back a tremor. Ibrahim remains still, gaze lowered, not out of shame or reverence, but restraint. The silence is electric. Narration deepens, dragging us into rooms we've never seen. Production offices in the late 90s, where interns sorted through piles of handwritten pleas while editors circled segments to cut. A handwritten note marked too political, another, child's English, too broken. Mukamana's was labeled emotionally disruptive. A memory returns an intern, placing it gently into a drawer and closing it, not out of cruelty, but compliance. That drawer remains shut for nearly 30 years. In the studio, the red stream icon pulses. Viewers multiply. Someone screen records Oprah blinking back emotion. The comment section scrolls endlessly, some praising her for facing it, others condemning the years of silence. But Ibrahim doesn't perform for the crowd. His voice returns. Calm as before. Mukamana died thinking no one would ever hear her name. Oprah responds quietly, I didn't know. Then she adds, more softly, that doesn't change what happened. That line, raw, unguarded, becomes the first quote pulled by journalists. The narration weaves into flashbacks again. Short clips appear, footage from televised charity events. Celebrities in neatly pressed safari outfits, smiling beside villages that had just buried children. A slow montage unfolds Oprah's old specials, narrated over by silent subtitles of the things unsaid, the footage unreleased, the pleas unheard. Viewers begin searching. Screenshots surface of archives, backstage stills, documents previously sealed. Names reappear, not just Mukamana's, but dozens, some traceable. Most lost. Back in real time, the studio air tightens. Oprah leans into the mic again, her voice steadier now. When we collected those letters, we told ourselves we were giving them dignity. I see now, we were giving ourselves comfort. Her eyes dart to Ibrahim for the first time without expectation. He doesn't speak. Instead, narration describes the look, his quiet acknowledgement, his refusal to humiliate her, and yet, his refusal to let the weight slide. Suddenly, a producer slips Oprah a phone. She doesn't want to take it. She hesitates, then reads aloud, unaware the mic is still hot. "We've found her mother, Mukamana's mother." Her voice breaks. She's alive. The air shifts again. Narration captures the juxtaposition: one woman with global reach, another whose daughter's name was buried beneath camera angles. The mother doesn't go on air. She doesn't call in, but she sends one message, read by a translator. "I do not want apology. I want her name said without shame." That line echoes in the studio. The chat explodes. Even viewers who had logged in out of curiosity now sit motionless. New outrage? New viral soundbite? Just grief and its echo? More voices follow. A Haitian teacher writes in, sharing a letter he tried to hand over in 2004 that never aired. A Sudanese nurse describes being photographed with Oprah's delegation but never allowed to speak. One message, short and brutal: "They took our images and left our stories." The tension doesn't escalate, it deepens. Not with confrontation, but accumulation. A reckoning, not a brawl. The camera zooms slowly as Oprah places the letter on the table again. Open this time. The handwriting is messy, the crayon words shaky. Mukamana's name underlined 3 times. "My brother's name is innocent," it reads. "Tell the world," he smiled, even when he was scared. Oprah doesn't cry, she doesn't need to. The camera doesn't dramatize, it holds. Narration concludes this segment not with summary, but a simple moment opera, removing her earpiece, letting her headset rest on the table. Her fingers trace the edge of the letter. Then she looks to Ibrahim. "Will you read it again?" she asks. And so he does. Word for word. No edits, no performance. Just voice. Asterisk, the screen doesn't fade. It lingers. Oprah remains in frame, unmoving, as Ibrahim's footsteps fade into the distance. The audio engineer hesitates to cut the feed. She doesn't signal, doesn't shift. Her breathing is audible, but heavy, like someone waking up inside a truth too large to fold away. Narration lingers on her silhouette, a titan of media, now just a woman at a table with a letter she never meant to forget. The world watches. Screenshots flood, social media not of Ibrahim's words, but of Oprah's silence. A still frame, her eyes downward, letter open, a single tear falling unnoticed. A caption emerges and begins to spread. This time, she listened. It is not meant as praise, not mockery either, just observation. A mirror to a world that finally paused. Inside the studio, the crew remains quiet. No one moves to wrap cables or dim lights. Oprah finally exhales loud enough that the boom mic catches it. "I was 24 when I first went to Africa," she says, not to anyone in particular. Her voice is low, reverent. "I wanted to tell stories the world ignored. But I think I started choosing which stories to tell based on what felt redemptive." The narration does not interrupt. It follows. Her inward through memories of arranged interviews, rehearsed hugs, photo ops with clean water pumps, miles from where cholera spread. The story she wanted to tell wasn't always the truth she found, and at some point, the platform grew too big to risk breaking the audience's heart too hard. "That's when the silence began," she murmurs. A knock on the studio glass. A young assistant holds up a phone. Oprah squints. It's a live feed, a classroom in Kigali. Children watching the podcast on a projector. One of the girls, maybe 10, raises her hand to the camera. The assistant doesn't need to explain. Oprah nods and gestures to let it through. Her voice steadies. "May I speak to them?" The call is patched in. The classroom appears on the monitor. The children don't speak, just watch. Oprah leans forward again, close to the mic. "Your names, your stories. I will no longer filter them to make anyone comfortable, not even myself." The teacher, off-screen, translates. The kids don't cheer. One nods, another clasps her hands. It's enough. Narration circles around Ibrahim's absence. He didn't wait for applause. He didn't turn around. He just left when his part was done. No victory lap, no tweet, just the sound of a door closing behind someone who refused to be edited. And yet, his presence still lingers in the room, felt in the silence he created, not the words he spoke. Oprah's producer speaks again, softer this time. "We can still trim. It's not too late." But Oprah shakes her head again. Every second stays, even the silence, especially the silence. That decision, raw and uncalculated, becomes the show's legacy. Within minutes, unfiltered clips begin circulating. An unbroken 10-minute segment where no one speaks. But everything changes. In homes around the world, people sit with their phones in their laps, unsure what to comment. Some weep, others write nothing. But most just watch the clip again. And, again, narration flashes through reactions. A university lecturer in Boston replaying it for students. A South African journalist revising an old draft. A former missionary clutching a yellowed notebook, lips pressed together. Somewhere, Mukamana's mother hears her daughter's name on the radio and weeps into her hands. Back in the studio, the credits don't roll. Oprah doesn't move from her chair, but eventually, she picks up the letter once more and folds it not to hide it, but to protect it. She places it inside a leather journal. Her fingers linger. We air a new series next week, she says softly, but I won't be hosting. The crew exchanges glances. Who will? Someone whispers. Oprah turns, her face resolute. They will. She points to the screen where the Rwandan classroom still watches. The ones we didn't hear, let them speak. And just like that, the show ends. No ultra music, no applause, just the faint click of a microphone turned off. Weeks pass. Quietly, a ripple spreads. University panels begin citing the podcast in ethics courses. NGOs revise outdated internal structures, some publicly, some quietly. Across continents, former volunteers start stepping forward with their own accounts. Stories long buried under bureaucracy and PR. In South Africa, a young woman holds up a letter from her late brother during a news interview. He was never supposed to be a footnote, she says, voice trembling. That clip, raw, unpolished, goes viral, stitched beside Ibrahim's calm, wordless presence. He heard us becomes a whispered mantra. Journalists refer to it as the listening era, a cultural shift sparked not by outrage, but by the absence of noise. Editorials stop asking what happened to Oprah and start asking why no one had asked Mukamana anything until now. A small memorial is erected in Kigali. No ceremony, no speeches. Just a wall, engraved with names of those who'd written letters to the UN but never received replies. Mukamana's name is at the top, followed by in memory of the silenced Oprah Funsk. The memorial quietly, without public mention, but someone leaks a photo, her kneeling beside the wall, hand resting on Mukamana's name. The image becomes the cover of the New Yorker. No caption, just the picture. For once, the world doesn't rush to interpret it. It just breathes. At a literacy event in Ouagadougou, children reenact scenes from the unread letters. Ibrahim attends but doesn't speak. Instead, he gives each child a pen, engraved simply with "Tell it." A journalist asks if he'll return to the podcast. He shakes his head. I was only the mirror, he replies. Let the voices reflect themselves now. Oprah's team disbands the old format of her show entirely. They release one final statement. We were part of something that stopped listening. That changes now. Instead of a studio, the new production team partners with community centers across Africa, Asia, and Latin America, training survivors to produce their own stories, in their own languages, under their own names. Traoré is listed as an advisor, but his reply, when asked for comment, is just one sentence. They never needed me to speak for them, only to get out of their way. Back in Chicago, Oprah returns to the church where she first trained as a speaker. She sits in the pews, not at the pulpit. One Sunday morning, an older black woman passes her and says, "You were brave." Oprah smiles but doesn't reply. Not everything needs a response anymore. She's learning to let silence finish the sentence. The final podcast of the Unread Letters plays unannounced. Oprah speaks slowly, reading one last letter, Mukamana's. The full one, unedited, without crosstalk or explanation. No music, just the sound of her voice breaking mid-word. It ends not with commentary, but with the rustle of pages and a soft, barely audible, "I'm sorry." As the screen fades to black, a quiet statistic appears. Over 900 letters from genocide survivors have now been digitally archived. 68% were previously unread. Fade out. No applause, no credits, just silence. Then slowly, in dozens of languages across the screen, "Are you listening now?"